Picture this, right? You're waking up in New England, and a regional state of emergency has just been declared.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the tail end of a hurricane essentially brushed the coastline overnight. So there is literal wreckage in the streets.
Right.
You've got mildly flooded roads, just debris scattered absolutely everywhere. Families waking up entirely displaced from their homes, dealing with the shock of this totally upended reality.
A nightmare, honestly.
Exactly. And moving right through the middle of this physical devastation, you see an older man. He's soaking wet, pedaling this rusty bicycle through the light, steady rain.
Just powering through.
Yeah, just navigating these flooded campus streets to get to his classroom.
It is a really striking cinematic image to open on, because we are looking at a narrative case study today, specifically Book 1, Chapter 7 of a larger philosophical text.
Right.
And that man on the bicycle is Professor Cromwell-Smith. He walks into his lecture hall. You know, the floors are slick with water, raincoats are dripping in the corners.
The whole room probably feels damp and heavy.
Damp, heavy, tense. Exactly. He looks at his students, many of whom are personally reeling from this actual physical storm, and he makes this fascinating pedagogical choice. He decides to take them back to a different kind of storm entirely, an internal one.
Right. He basically flashes back to a moment from his own youth, back when he was young Erasmus. Only for Erasmus, the wreckage wasn't out in the streets. It was inside his own home. The text paints this agonizing picture of his parents' eroded confidence. And this is a confidence Erasmus had basically adopted as his own foundational security. You know?
Totally.
And he's watching it get dismantled blow by blow in these nightly fights of blame. The big dreams are suddenly gone. All they're talking about is him settling for technical school or a basic apprenticeship.
It feels like his entire future is caving in.
Exactly. So the external weather of the hurricane perfectly mirrors the internal weather of his youth.
It does, and that's really the core mission of our deep dive today. We're going to unpack the specific text Professor Cromwell-Smith uses to teach his students how to survive that kind of internal devastation.
Yeah.
He introduces them to a poem simply titled Hope. And we're going to deconstruct how this narrative frames hope, because the text aggressively redefines it.
It really does. It moves away from the usual stuff.
Right. It moves hope away from this idea of passive, wishful thinking. It positions it as a structural, active, and highly protective force designed specifically for life's most devastating storms.
I want you, listening right now, to think about a time your own internal forecast felt like that.
Yeah, that's a good framing.
Like a Category 5 hurricane just made landfall in your mind, wiping out your carefully laid plans and leaving nothing but debris. Because when an internal storm is raging with that level of intensity, you can't just stand out in the rain.
No, you have to seek shelter.
Right, you need some kind of intervention. And for young Erasmus, that shelter takes the form of a mentor.
Yes. So Erasmus ventures out on this foggy, misty Tuesday, seeking refuge at the Morris Rosen Sons antique bookstore.
Just trying to escape.
Exactly. But the atmosphere there is pure chaos. The shop is swarming with people. The media has descended on the town, creating what the text calls a maddening scramble.
A maddening scramble. I love that phrasing.
It's so visceral. Yet the owner, Mr. M, who's referred to in the text as the Equilibrist, he manages to cut through all of that noise. He is clearly stressed by the commotion himself, but he spots Erasmus's lost and clamoring eyes across the room.
And he just drops everything.
Drops everything.
He ignores the media, ignores the paying customers, and pulls Erasmus aside. The text calls this tutelage a pure labor of love.
Which is such a powerful moment of connection.
It is. Mr. M walks to the far end of the hall, picks up this average-sized green and gold book, opens it, and reads this poem, Hope. And the author immediately throws out definitions that demand a double take.
Yeah, the language is very deliberate.
The poem calls hope a secret elixir that grants a life with purpose. And it describes it as a wellspring of willpower.
Those specific word choices, elixir and wellspring, are doing a lot of heavy lifting in establishing the psychology of resilience here.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I actually have to push back a little on the word elixir.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, when I hear elixir, I immediately think of a magic potion sold out of a covered wagon.
Right. Like snake oil.
Exactly. I think of a quick fix. And honestly, the way we usually talk about hope in modern society, it feels like a passive, almost desperate thing.
Like you have no control left.
Yeah. You have no control over your circumstances, so you toss a coin in a wishing well, say, I hope this works out, and cross your fingers. Calling it an elixir makes it sound like, I don't know, snake oil for the soul.
I completely see where you're coming from. That is absolutely the dominant cultural misconception. We use hope as a synonym for wish.
Right.
You might say, I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow, which requires absolutely zero effort or psychological endurance on your part.
None at all.
But let's look at the second phrase the poem uses alongside Elixir. Wellspring of willpower.
Okay.
A wellspring is a source you actively draw from. The text is arguing that hope is not a surrender to fate. It is the biological and psychological mechanism that generates the energy required to rebuild.
Ah, so it's not the feeling you get when you buy a lottery ticket. It's the actual fuel in the tank.
Yes. Think about what happens when you are entirely depleted, when your fortitude is just gone, which is exactly where Erasmus is standing in that bookstore.
His executive function is probably shutting down under the stress of his parents arguing.
Exactly. In that state of total depletion, hope isn't a wish that things will magically improve. It operates as the internal mechanism that restarts the cognitive engine.
Wow.
It provides the literal willpower to take the next step. It's an active choice to adopt a resolute mindset, which then allows you to begin restoring your life.
The fuel, not the destination.
Right.
Okay, if we view it as an active generator of willpower, the elixir metaphor actually makes more sense. It's the substance that cures the paralysis of despair.
That's a great way to put it.
But the poem doesn't stop at hope being this internal energy source. The imagery shifts entirely. It moves from an internal liquid to an external defense mechanism.
The armor.
Yes, the text states that hope equips us with stealth armor beneath soft, gentle silk.
That juxtaposition of stealth armor and gentle silk introduces a really profound paradox. And it is the exact paradox that trips up one of Professor Cromwell-Smith's students during the lecture.
Yeah, a student named Lucas, right, who comes from an economics background.
Yes, Lucas asks a highly perceptive, very practical question.
He essentially asks the ultimate tangible versus intangible question. How does a feeling provide real, actual protection against physical hardships?
Which is totally fair.
Yeah, because if you lose your home in a hurricane, or your parents' finances collapse like Erasmus's, an invisible emotion doesn't pay the rent. It doesn't put a new roof on the house.
Lucas is looking for a physical mechanism for a psychological concept. And the professor's analysis here is vital for understanding the whole text. He explains that hope doesn't shield you from the physical blow. The storm still hits. The bank still forecloses.
The armor isn't designed to protect your bank account.
Exactly. It is designed to protect your spirit and your mind. It prevents the core of your identity from fracturing under the weight of that tangible hardship. It acts as an existential shield.
Physical armor like heavy steel plates. I'm protected, but I'm also completely closed off from the world.
You're rigid.
Exactly, I'm rigid. But the poem specifies its armor beneath soft, gentle silk.
Right. The silk represents your interface with the world. You remain vulnerable. You remain empathetic. You remain soft and engaging. You don't let the trauma turn you into a hardened, bitter cynic.
You still wear silk.
You still wear silk. But underneath the silk is Kevlar.
Okay, I love that analogy. It's like wearing a Kevlar vest under a silk shirt. The Kevlar stops the bullets of rejection or failure or despair from piercing your vital psychological organs.
Precisely.
So the hardship hits you, you feel the impact, but it doesn't become fatal to your spirit. You don't bleed out emotionally.
And because you aren't bleeding out emotionally, your cognitive bandwidth remains intact. This ties directly into the next line of the poem, which suggests that hope whispers tunes and melodies on seemingly non-existent paths and non-existent doors.
Non-existent doors. That is a wild concept.
It sounds strange at first.
How does hope make you see doors that aren't there?
Well, we have to look at the psychology of trauma and panic. When a person is overwhelmed by despair, they experience an amygdala hijack.
Right.
The fight or flight response just takes over completely. Your vision literally narrows, both physically and cognitively.
Oh, wow.
You lose access to your prefrontal cortex, which is where creative problem solving happens. In a state of pure despair, you only see the wreckage. You only see the dead end.
Because your brain is just screaming, threat, threat, threat.
Exactly.
There's no bandwidth left to invent a solution.
But the existential shield of hope protects that cognitive bandwidth. By preventing the despair from taking total control, hope keeps the prefrontal cortex engaged.
It keeps the lights on upstairs.
Yes. It allows you to maintain peripheral vision in your life. You begin to see solutions, pathways, and doors that a despairing mind simply cannot perceive.
To the pessimist, those doors are literally non-existent because their brain has shut down the capacity to look for them.
Right. But the hopeful mind, protected by that stealth armor, spots the exit.
It's stealth armor because nobody else can see it, but it's doing the heavy lifting of keeping your nervous system regulated enough to find a way out of the flooded room.
That is exactly what it's doing.
Now, as the students in the narrative grasp this concept of hope as both an internal fuel and an existential shield, the classroom discussion pivots to practical application.
The authenticity piece.
Yeah, the author claims that while we hope, we remain authentic. It's the force that lets us look right into the eye of any tempest without blinking.
Authenticity is deeply linked to resilience here. When you are stripped of your plans, your resources, your comfort, who are you?
That's a big question.
Despair tends to turn us into victims of circumstance. We become whatever the trauma dictates. But hope is the mechanism that allows you to remain the author of your own story.
You stay true to your core values, even when everything around you is chaotic.
Exactly.
But then another student, Hillary, jumps in with a question that completely grounds the philosophy.
It's a great question.
He asks, is hope alone enough to drive us forward? Is it just this solo superhero that swoops in and fixes everything?
And the professor's response is a firm, unequivocal no.
No.
Hope alone is merely a starting point. If it isn't partnered with something else, it degrades right back into the passive wishful thinking we critiqued earlier.
Right.
The text insists that hope requires a partnership with action, taking tangible steps despite the fear, and with faith.
So what does this all mean practically? If I just sit on my couch and hope for a better future while watching TV, absolutely nothing changes in my life.
Nothing at all.
The dishes don't wash themselves. The resume doesn't magically appear on a hiring manager's desk.
Hope without action is basically an engine running in neutral. You are burning fuel, but going nowhere.
It makes me think of driving a car. Hope is the steering wheel.
Oh, I like that.
It gives you direction. It keeps you pointed toward a better future. It gives you a sense of purpose. But action is the gas pedal.
Right.
You could steer all day long, sitting in your driveway, turning the wheel left and right, but until you press the gas, until you take that small step, despite your fear, you aren't moving toward happiness or equilibrium.
And the steering wheel is useless without the gas, just like the gas is incredibly dangerous without the steering wheel.
Also true.
Action without hope is just frantic, panicked movement. You might drive straight off a cliff because you have no vision of where you are going. Hope combined with effort is what the text ultimately calls transformative.
Which leads to what might be the most powerful philosophical concept in the entire chapter. A student named Akiko asks about a phrase in the poem that calls hope the last freedom standing.
It is a profound psychological truth. It really echoes the existentialist ideas of thinkers who survived unimaginable horrors.
Yeah.
The professor explains that even in the face of complete and total tragedy, when you have lost your home, your family, your resources, your physical mobility,
When everything is gone.
when every external liberty has been stripped away from you by force or circumstance, no one and no storm can deprive you of your ability to choose hope.
It is the ultimate exercise in self-determination. They can take the house, they can take the money, they can take your physical freedom, but they cannot reach inside your mind and turn off the light unless you let them.
Because when the external storm has taken everything, your internal posture is still your own territory. You can still choose to believe in a brighter future. You maintain sovereignty over your own spirit.
The last freedom standing.
That is why it is the last freedom standing. When all other freedoms fall, that one remains untouchable.
That is incredibly heavy, but also deeply empowering. It shifts the perspective entirely. You stop feeling like a victim of the storm and realize you are still the captain of whatever is left of your ship.
Beautifully said.
And the text handles the weight of this philosophy so well by grounding us back in the physical, sensory reality of Erasmus's story.
The aftermath.
Yes, the lesson ends. Erasmus stepped out of the Morris Rosen Sons bookstore, and the atmosphere of the town has completely transformed.
The external storm has finally passed, and the text uses these vivid sensory details to mirror Erasmus's internal shift. The fog is lifting, rain has subsided, there is a fresh, earthy scent in the air,
Oh, I can picture it.
and the cobblestones are glistening faintly under the street lamps.
You can almost feel the cool air hitting his face. Now, the confusion and the wreckage of his parents' arguments haven't magically disappeared. He still has to go home to that reality, but the fog in his own mind has cleared. He leaves the bookstore with a newfound sense of determination. He has this massive realization based on what Mr. M told him. Resilience isn't about stubbornly grinding your gears when you're stuck in the mud.
Uh-huh.
It is not about simply never giving up.
The distinction the text makes here is crucial. Mr. M teaches him that it is about never losing hope, and therefore never giving up.
Right.
If you maintain the belief that there is solid ground somewhere ahead, if you keep your prefrontal cortex engaged and look for those non-existent doors, then the act of not giving up happens as a natural byproduct.
It's the shining light guiding the way, the fuel keeping the engine running. And I think that's why this entire deep dive matters so much for you listening right now. Whatever your dire moments happen to be,
Absolutely.
you might not be dealing with a literal hurricane or a family crisis about technical school, but we all face periods where the forecast is incredibly bleak.
We all experience moments of total depletion where our cognitive and emotional bandwidth is stretched to the breaking point.
In those moments, hope isn't a luxury.
Mm.
It's not a naive wish or snake oil. It is the life vest. It is the biological and psychological wellspring that actually illuminates the path forward.
It really is.
It's what allows you to look at a terrifying situation and say, I am afraid, but I am not going to let the fear make my decisions for me.
Yeah.
It equips you to face the eye of any tempest without blinking, wearing your stealth armor beneath the silk.
And we have spent this entire discussion focusing on how hope protects the individual, how it acts as your personal existential shield and your last freedom standing. But the text hints at a broader application. Hope resonates deeply within our core, spreading effortlessly to others.
Which brings us to a really fascinating final thought to leave you with today.
Yeah.
If hope really is this stealth armor, what happens when we actively choose to lend our armor to someone else?
That's a great question.
Can your own practiced, deliberate hope become the secret elixir that jumpstarts the willpower of a friend or a loved one? Think about it. When someone you care about is trapped in the eye of their own Category 5 hurricane, when their executive function is shutting down and they literally cannot see the non-existent doors,
Yeah.
can your certainty be the shelter they stand under until their own storm passes?
It's a powerful idea.
Something to mull over the next time you see someone standing out in the rain.